I don't even know where to start. It feels like my thoughts are caught in a whirlwind, spinning out of control, and no matter how hard I try, I can't make sense of it all. It's as if someone took my entire world and turned it upside down, leaving me in complete chaos. I've been through so much in my life: challenges, victories, heartbreaks, and losses. I always thought nothing could throw me off balance anymore. But this is something entirely different, something I never expected. The woman I once believed was my one and only, my rock, my lifelong partner. I met her back when I was still in military academy. I can still remember how it all started, how innocent it seemed. Casual meetings, lingering glances, then letters, and endless conversations. At some point, we just knew we couldn't be apart. Time passed, our relationship grew stronger, and I became more convinced that she was the woman I was meant to spend the rest of my life with. Everything unfolded naturally, like a story written in advance. The wedding, children, family responsibilities. I believed that fate had brought us together, and that we would walk this path side by side until the very end. Our children have grown up now. They've built their own lives and are standing firmly on their own 2 feet. It was a relief to know that they're settled, and I thought the future was ours to enjoy. I imagined that we'd finally have our time, just the two of us, spending our later years in peace, free from the worries and responsibilities that had filled our earlier days. I dreamed of a future where we'd simply enjoy each other's company, reflecting on the life we built together, growing old with grace and harmony. But, as it turns out, my wife had completely different plans for her future. Everything started about half a year ago, in the heart of summer. From that moment on, I began to notice something different about her. It was as if someone had flipped a switch, and my wife started behaving in a completely new way. She changed her hairstyle, dyed her hair into a bold color she'd never tried before. It wasn't just her appearance that shifted. Her entire demeanor was different. She began dressing in a way that was daring, bold, stylish, as if she had transformed back into a vibrant, youthful version of herself, full of energy and life. Naturally, I couldn't help but notice. I complimented her, thinking that she was doing this for me, making an effort to reignite that spark in our relationship, to grab my attention once again. I was flattered, even a bit excited. Deep down, I convinced myself that perhaps it was a sign of jealousy. Maybe she had noticed how some of my female students occasionally seemed a bit too interested in me, and she wanted to prove that she could still outshine them. I was sure her transformation was her way of ensuring I kept my eyes only on her. But then, things started to take a more unsettling turn. She began coming home later and later, and sometimes she didn't come home at all, claiming she had been working late or stayed over at a friend's place. This was accompanied by an increasing irritability, with anger flaring up over the smallest things. Every innocent remark I made seemed to spark an argument. She started taking her phone into another room whenever she got a call or message, making sure to keep her conversations out of my sight. And what hurt the most? There were unexplained refusals to be intimate, which was never an issue for us before. All of this began to weigh heavily on my mind. The puzzle pieces were falling into place, but I didn't want to believe what they were forming. For a long time, I tried to endure it, making excuses for her behavior, attributing it to stress, exhaustion, or maybe even the natural changes that come with age. But eventually, I realized I couldn't keep turning a blind eye to the obvious. The tension in our relationship was growing, and I knew it was time for a serious conversation. Finally, I managed to confront her, and although I wasn't prepared for what she would say, I knew I had to face the truth. She began to speak calmly, without much emotion, but I could sense something stirring deep within her. She admitted that for all these years, she had been a wonderful mother to our children, a faithful wife to me, and a true friend. "I've given you everything I had. I gave you 2 amazing children, and I devoted more than 2 decades of my life to you," she said. And that was true. We had indeed been through a lot together. We loved each other, respected each other, and always supported one another through hard times. We walked side by side, as one solid team, and it felt like that would never change. But then she confessed that over time, her feelings for me had cooled, and it wasn't my fault. "It's just something that happens," she said, as if trying to soften the blow. Her words hit me like ice, freezing me in place, but at the same time, I knew she wasn't trying to hurt me. She was simply being honest. She went on, "I am grateful to you for everything. For the years we spent together, for our children, for being there for me, for being a good husband and a wonderful father. You are a great person, and I'm sure everything will work out for you." She tried to reassure me, reminding me that I still looked youthful for my age. And honestly, she wasn't wrong. I had never smoked, stayed fit, and drank only on rare occasions. Any one of your students would be happy to be with you, I'm sure, she said with a strained smile. But those words, meant to soothe, didn't ease the sting. They were just a fact, and facts couldn't mend the hurt in that moment. Then came the words I feared the most: it's time for each of us to live our own life. I stood frozen, trying to comprehend the weight of what she had just said. She confessed that she had met another man and had fallen in love with him. Her conscience, she claimed, was clear because she had fulfilled her duty. She had been a faithful wife, mother, and friend for all those years. I could see the sincerity in her eyes as she pleaded for forgiveness, asking me to let her go. She was almost on her knees, her voice filled with desperation as she begged me to understand and set her free. She explained that with him, she felt alive again, like she had bloomed once more. She said she didn't just feel like a woman, but like a young girl, 20 years younger. Her confession echoed in my mind, shaking the very foundation of everything I thought I knew. At first, it was a sharp, searing pain, as if something inside me was being torn apart. After all, we had spent so many years together, built so many memories, and now everything seemed to be crumbling before my eyes. But deep down, part of me knew this was inevitable, that sooner or later, this moment would come. I couldn't say I was completely blindsided. I understood that she had endured so much as the wife of a military man. Honestly, I still find myself amazed that she stuck by me through it all, never once leaving my side, even during the hardest times. She followed me, along with our children, from one military town to another, across bases and garrisons, constantly uprooting her life without ever knowing when stability would come. And when I finally got this assignment here at the headquarters, I thought we could settle down, find some peace. But maybe for her, those years were too heavy a burden to bear, and she couldn't carry it any longer. At some point, I even became curious. Who was this new man, this lucky one, who had managed to make her feel alive again, young and desired? But, surprisingly, I didn't feel anger or rage toward him. No, I wasn't going to throw a fit of jealousy, challenge him, or, like some might do, punch him in the face. Truthfully, I had already made up my mind. If she no longer loved me, it would be better to let her go. There was no point in dragging it out, making all three of us suffer for the sake of old memories. It was better for me to be the one to bear the pain. I figured I'd find a way to deal with it on my own. Yes, it hurt, but it seemed better than dragging everyone else down into a pit of misery. When I asked her who this man was, she refused to tell me. Her face went cold, and I could see that she wasn't willing to share that piece of information. But I couldn't just let it go. My curiosity, the need to know the truth, gnawed at me. I wasn't trying to interrogate her, but the question burned inside me, refusing to be silenced. In the end, I had no choice but to find out for myself. When the truth finally came out, my world flipped upside down, as if everything I thought I knew had suddenly been turned on its head. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. A boy. He's only 21. That's not even a man. He's still just a kid. And her, my wife, 45 years old, a woman in her prime, the mother of our two grown children. How could she? I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that she would throw everything we had away for this boy. I tried to reason with her. I shouted myself hoarse, pleading with her to see reason. What are you doing? I cried. He's going to get bored and leave you like a toy he's outgrown. He's just 21. He's playing with your mind, and you can't even see it. But she looked at me with a strange, detached calm, a coldness that only made the pain worse. She said she had found happiness with him. You don't understand, she said. I've come alive again with him. With him, I'm living a life of excitement again. We haven't had that kind of thrill in ages. With him, I've fulfilled my wildest fantasies, and I've learned so much. Every word she spoke was like a stab to my heart. Listening to those revolting details was unbearable, but I stood there, speechless, because what else could I do? Our daughter and son-in-law were just as shocked. They couldn't wrap their heads around it, and I didn't blame them. They didn't even try to understand her. I knew, better than anyone, that infatuation can cloud judgment. Over my years at the university, I'd had students confess their feelings to me twice. They flirted, but I always knew it was just a fleeting crush, something immature, not worth risking anything for. I shut it down immediately, never even giving it a second thought. But my wife, she allowed herself to be swept away by this boy, destroying everything we had built. When our son came home for the New Year's holidays, I gathered my courage and told him the truth. Naturally, he exploded with anger, calling her a fool. As much as I was boiling with my own resentment, I couldn't allow him to speak that way about his mother. Don't you dare talk about her like that. I snapped. She's still your mother. We rang in the new year, just the three of us, me, my son, and our daughter with her husband. And where was she? She was in New York, celebrating with her young lover. I didn't even need to ask who paid for the trip. It was obvious. She called us from there, trying to keep in touch, but the kids flat out refused to talk to her. I tried to convince them, pleaded with them. She's still your mother, no matter what. I said, but they wouldn't hear it. Her betrayal destroyed them from the inside out, as it did me. Honestly, let me tell you, I don't hold any grudge, anger, or hatred toward her. Yes, what she did was cruel. Her decisions have turned our lives upside down. But despite all the pain, anger isn't what fills me now. After all the conversations, she calmly told me she would file for divorce right after the holidays. No drama, no tears. She said she would leave the house to me. After all, it's where our memories are, where our children grew up. And she would move with that boy to our old two-bedroom apartment. I listened to her speak, barely able to believe that this was really happening. Then she laid out her business proposal. 50% of the profits from her store would be hers, and the rest would be split 3 ways, between me, our son, and our daughter. Those were the terms she offered, as if it were just another contract and not the end of decades of shared life. And all this, under the condition that I give her a clean, uncontested divorce. I mustn't stand in her way, mustn't try to get her back, mustn't follow her, and most of all, mustn't turn the kids against her. She even asked me to let her be free for her personal happiness. As if it were that simple, as if I could just forget, let go, and move on. I don't know what will happen to her when reality finally catches up, when the thrill of this new life, with her young lover, starts to fade. She's blinded by euphoria right now, but I know her too well. I've lived with her for many years and seen her through every imaginable situation. When reality sets in, when those rose-colored glasses come off, she'll face the consequences of her choices, and I fear that it will break her. Despite what she's done, despite the betrayal she's inflicted on me, on all of us, I still hope she'll come to her senses. I hope she'll realize her mistake before it's too late. Maybe time will put everything in its proper place, and she'll see that she's chasing an illusion instead of real life. But for now, I'm letting her go, because there's no point in fighting for something that's already been shattered.